You're listening to Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast, comics, television, movies, and more. If it impacts fan culture, we have something to say about it. And now, your hosts, Michael, Jordan, Cliff, and Seth.
Who's going first?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm the illustrious Michael K. Easton.
2, I'm Jordan Lowe.
3, I'm Cliff Barnes.
I'm Seth. What a mess. We're back.
That's how we do
I'm
it.
Everything's going smoothly. Cliff's microphone's plugged in this time.
Helps
Yeah,
the operation.
The four amigos are back together. So yeah, sorry about those last few episodes if the audio was a little wonky. It's only been a year on Zoom. We're still ironing out the details on how this all works.
Yeah, of course it would start with the episode, where we're bragging about how we're experienced and we've been on for a whole year using Zoom and how great it is, and I completely mess up the audio.
That works.
In a year of Zoom, we've put out 714 episodes, I think.
715.
About 5 or 6 a week. We hope you're keeping up
Who's
with
counting?
all of them.
It's about right.
But we haven't talked comic books in a while. That's we've had a kind of a blind spot to our first love, what this podcast really launched about, the comic book world. So we're going to rectify that tonight and talk comic books.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Well, some people use their imagination.
Well, I must hurry back to my comic book store where I dispense the insults rather than absorb them.
It happens all the time. Read a comic book, okay?
Excited.
You sound excited.
I've got quite a bit of news that's kind of piled up here over the last few months, but we won't try not to belabor anything. But then Marvel decided to do a little trick this week, and that kind of became the top story on the internet because there hasn't been some huge industry-shaking headache retailers have had to deal with for almost a year, so we had to fix that. Marvel is changing their distribution. The way DC left Diamond at the beginning of the pandemic, here we're nearing. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel of the pandemic. And Marvel says, yeah, let's get out of here, too. They are moving their distribution to Penguin Random House, an exclusive worldwide multi-year agreement. So what does this mean if you're just a comic fan or comic buyer? Not
That's
much.
what I was going to ask.
Mm-hmm.
There's not it's mostly behind-the-scenes stuff, so...
This sounds like a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah,
It's an
right.
MP.
You could have saved this for the end.
This is definitely an MP, not a YP. Yet. I'll leave it. There's some ominous things I'll leave hanging. So, how did Jordan hear about this? Well, Jordan opened his email and had a message from Steve Jeppy, the head of Diamond, that the subject line was Diamond continuing to supply Marvel Comics, trade paperbacks, and graphic novels.
That had to make you feel good right there.
And I paused a second. I thought, that's weird. That's like getting an email. McDonald's still going to sell hamburgers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You would think like, wait, what happened?
No matter what that one guy just ate.
No matter what you may have heard, we're still going to do this. So I thought,
Golden
no.
Graham's still doing it.
So I hadn't seen the announcement. I just saw the reaction to the announcement first thing. And I thought, oh, great. So the direct market, that is comic shops around the world. That is the specialty market that's been around for 30 years now of people who buy non-returnable items through Diamond, the comic distributors. They have been a monopoly.
Wait a minute. These are not returnable?
Yeah, which was the big distinction. In newsstands, you could return them after a month, and you only got charged 30% of the cover price. Diamond came around and said, hey, if you buy these non-returnable, you can get 50% off the cover price. So that's the big difference between newsstand and direct market. But starting October 1st, Marvel is going to Penguin Random House So they said it was in order to, quote, create a sustainable, productive supply chain and enhanced infrastructure, which is kind of a slam toward Diamond, but they probably deserve that. So the biggest news out of all this was Diamond. You can if you want to stay with Diamond, retailers can still purchase through Diamond, but they're going to be buying from Penguin. So Diamond will buy their stuff wholesale from Penguin, and then you'll buy your stuff wholesale from Diamond, which they can't promise right now what the kind of discount will be or what the terms will be or how the shipping will all work, but we'll see.
Now, I saw someone was talking about the freight from Penguin, that you want to be charged freight, or there's some kind of...
Yeah, most of like Penguin, or there are a ton of distributors in the book market who ship to bookstores. There's a lot of competition, so most of those have free shipping. So when a Barnes and Noble ordered a truckload of books, it was free to get them. Comics have never had free shipping. Diamond has ridiculous shipping costs. So yes, Penguin, it will be free shipping. So I wondered, are they going to charge more?
Mm-hmm.
Is each book going to cost more to get free shipping? But they released an FAQ of like 50 questions. Here's at least right now, and they said it's going to be the standard 50% discount with the free shipping. So that's pretty neat. That could help ease a few headaches, or people were maybe not wanting to go to it. But
so what would make you want to stay with Diamond versus Penguin then?
Well, we're just kind of breaking things. Like the problem with DC, I'm getting a box every week from them and paying shipping on it for just a handful of books. So then I would have to buy another little box from Diamond for all the Image and Dark Horse and all that stuff. So is it like, would I pay a little more just to get that one shipment, just to do one order every month, just to have one set of paperwork and email and invoices and stuff in my taxes, is a little bit of inconvenience versus I don't know what the final charges will be, but I don't know. I haven't made up my mind yet, but it's nice they're giving us time.
Plus, you have had such a great relationship with Diamond. You really want to. I'm making a joke. I would think that you'd be like, I'll take as many shipments as possible to not have to deal with them.
Yeah, but they used to do the pie chart every month of what Diamond sold, but they stopped in March of 2020, right when DC left. They're kind of breaking it up. But the last time they measured, Marvel and DC accounted for 67% of the total direct market in terms of retail sales. So that's 2/3 of comic shop sales are Marvel and DC. So you take out Marvel, or you took out DC a year ago, you take out Marvel now. Can Diamond even survive with just 1/3? And right now, they're the only place to get all these other books. Everything else in the previous catalog, from Image and Saga and The Walking Dead and Invincible and all these big marquee titles, to the smallest of the small book. And are they all going to pick sides now, like they did in the 90s? Is it, well, we're going to go with this distributor and we're going to go with them? I don't know. It's the first. Like the rock just got thrown in the pond, and the ripples will come for a while, but I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know how does Diamond not just give up? I mean, when DC and Marvel both leave,
right?
Isn't there a bunch of like smaller publishers too, like signing exclusive distribution agreements?
Some places have, like I think Scout Comics was the first one that also went to Lunar, so you can get all your DC comics and Scout Comics, which if anyone here could name a Scout comic, I'd be impressed. But they're not, they put out several books a month, and it's not Dogman.
Sorry, you said pie chart, so I've been thinking about Dogman.
That's like that Pavlov's Dogman.
Well,
you smell pie, you start thinking about Dogman. So yeah, it could be, and if Diamond just folded, which they almost did. They couldn't pay their bills at the beginning of the pandemic when all the ordering stopped coming in, because they're like every comic shop. They live week to week. Whatever sales you make, pay for the next week's shipment. So Diamond didn't have a whole lot of extra money to make it through. So they're not in the best shape, never have been. So I don't know. And with all these other places having exclusive contracts, it might be a whole lot of people renegotiating things or changing things up. And a lot of places are doing Kickstarters. They're doing direct mails. You know, I get emails from several publishers a month saying like, hey, do you want to order something this way? Like, I think people are kind of testing the water on that kind of stuff. But Dan Buckley, who's president of Marvel, said, comics are the core of the Marvel Universe, and we are confident this new partnership will continue to grow and evolve this resilient industry. So that's kind of getting out in front of, why does Disney hate comics? They just want to make movies and cartoons and lunchboxes. Like, that they say, now, this isn't about destroying the comic industry, guys. we promise. But the question I saw most online from fans on all the comment sections were, why are retailers not as mad about this? Like, when the DC news broke, comic shop owners lost their mind and were furious. And this, people were like, oh, okay, I guess. So I can give you a couple reasons. One, we got months notice rather than days. Like, when DC first broke, it's like, you have 10 days to set up a new account and get all your orders in. I have till October to figure out what's going on. So that's a little bit easing into it. Two, it's not an online competitor. The two distributors who popped up were both mail order comic shops that I had to order. I had to order through someone I'm in direct competition with. And three, they're giving you the choice to stay with Diamond. It may not be the best choice, but at least, you know, DC gave you no choices. You go to this distributor or you don't buy DC Comics. So at least having the option, if things don't work out, I can stick with Diamond or I can move on. That's better to me. So I don't know. When DC did it, we went through all these. What does this mean? Is this, you know, a move away from direct markets and comic shops to digital and bookstores? Is this the mainstreaming and the lessening of monthly comics in favor of a different format of comics? And it was all kind of up in the air. And this seems more concrete that yes, yes to all that stuff. This is directly going to a bookstore distributor who is known for getting out, you know, graphic novels, boxes full of graphic novels, and have never done, you know, the monthly periodical comic before. So the world is changing and moving on. We all got to adjust to it, whether we want to or not.
And then you also have, like you were saying with DC Comics, they're increasing their prices on like the books. Like, most of them are going up to $4.99.
Yeah, they have definitely slowed their output and have raised the prices on several of the monthlies.
On those, the $4.99, are they having like the backup stories in those, or are they just?
Yeah, I can go ahead and move right on to that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I jump the gun?
No, I was done. I was done with that. So that's you segued the gun. Whatever that.
I pulled the trigger.
So we just finished Death Metal. We had talked about that the series, the kind of a cosmic series that restarted the multiverse.
Well, unraveled it.
Right. So did you pick up the Infinite Frontier one shot?
Yes. Yeah.
There was no comic I was so sure he was going to buy than this fake Darwin Cook thing.
So
it had the flavor. It had the flavor on the cover.
I know, it's all they needed. That's what they put it on there for.
So January and February, they did the Future State books. There were 2-issue things. It was all these Generation 5, the 5G concept that they didn't get around to doing, and they just kind of released it as two months worth of kind of Elseworld sort of stories. But then to the start of March, we got Infinite Frontier. They called it the next phase of the DC universe. Death Metal presented the darkest threats of the multiverse. DC Future State revealed what may lie ahead. Now it's time to look into the infinite frontier of the current day DC universe. So this is basically setting up everything exists. Everything happened. All the past happened from the Silver Age and the Golden Age and on. all the crises happened, everything, all the Elseworlds, everything exists somewhere. It's all one giant omniverse. Is that what they called it? It's more than a multiverse. Yes. It's an omniverse. So
well, there's more than just one omniverse as well, evidently.
There better be.
How many do we need?
I mean, basically what it's saying is that everything is canon from beginning to end, so they can sell more DC books.
And I like that. I don't like something I read years ago to not count anymore, or not matter anymore.
No doubt.
Yeah, that.
Well, I mean,
if you remember just when Disney bought Star Wars, and then threw out all the old extended universe stuff, and there were fans that lost their minds there for a while. So
wait, are you saying Star Wars fans?
Yeah,
got emotional.
Imagine that.
All right, so a lot after this Infinite Frontier one-shot set everything up, was kind of the baseline. A whole bunch of new books have started with new number ones and new jumping on points. And a lot of DC's books were twice a month. They were shipping every other week, $3.99 a piece, the big ones. So now that everything is back down to monthly, but they've raised them to $4.99. So you're technically saving money. But so the big launch was Bendis. Brian Michael Bendis is off the Superman titles and moved on to Justice League with David Marquez, the guy he worked a lot with on for Miles Morales at Marvel. So the Justice League book is $4.99 monthly, but you get a backup story of Justice League Dark. So Justice League Dark, the Constantine, Zatanna, Etrigan, all the mystic characters used to have their own book. Now they don't. They're just a backup story in Justice League. Superman and Action Comics, both $4.99. They have Tales of Metropolis backup stories in them. Wonder Woman, same thing, $4.99. You get Young Diana backup stories, the stories of her as a kid. And both Batman and Detective, you get there's a Damian backup story going on between each of those. So you're getting more, you're paying more, but you're getting more as well. Fans have always been kind of torn on that, whether it's some say I don't buy it for the backup story, that's wasted space, and others feel like it's a nice bonus. So just depending on what you're into.
Well, right there, I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot. I think it would, because their backup stories are like going with the main title, where I think it would be better if they had the main story, like say Superman, but then have a backup story featuring a B, C, or D list character.
Well, then you should buy Batman Urban Legends.
I'm just great with these segues, baby.
All three of the trilogy or the Trinity get their own anthology series as well. So Urban Legends is a monthly that has backup stories with Grifter, with the Red Hood, with the Birds of Prey, Huntress, and all. So it's going to have a rotating cast of like different stories every month.
Why did they not name that Gotham Knights? Seriously.
That's kind of a famous title. Superman got.
It just half like, to me. I'm instantly thinking like, well, if the stories are good, people probably aren't going to pay or aren't going to complain nearly as much about the backup stories and paying more for it. But if it's just stuff nobody cares about and nobody wants to read, then of course people are going to complain about it. So,
and the Urban Legends is $7.99 an issue. It's like one of those 48 page like square bound.
Wow.
So yeah, if you're only wanting to read a Grifter story,
right?
8 pages in this anthology for $7.99 is not quite.
Who the hell wants to read a Grifter story? I mean, come on.
It's been pretty good. It's that Matthew Rosenberg, a writer I really like, has been doing Grifter. It's been
all right.
He's like a bounty hunter, private
and then
security.
That other book that they had, was it Generations Forged or Shattered or?
Yeah, that was two one-shots, if that's an oxymoron. It was two single issues. And I think it was
$10.
It was more of that stuff that was kind cutting room floor from the 5G stuff. A lot of the characters throughout time and different eras kind of coming together. But yeah, Superman's getting the red and blue anthology. That one ended up just
that
being
actually,
a
of course, I'm gonna say looked kind of good.
It had some decent stuff. It's just the first issue's out so far. And then Wonder Woman's getting Sensational Wonder Woman. Again, just another one, rotating creators every issue. So they have really cut their line down, but they're focusing on just the heavy hitters at the moment, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
They've launched a whole bunch of new number ones and jumping on point. Joker has his own solo book for the first time since the 70s. He's, after this Joker War thing, he's the most wanted man in the world. And Commissioner Gordon can't retire until he finally puts the Joker to bed. So it's basically a detective story of Jim Gordon trying to track down the Joker around the world with a punchline backup story.
Is he trying to find his family in Tibet or wherever Batman has him locked away?
Who, Joker?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not canon anymore. That's the only thing that's
I'm
not
sorry.
canon. Everything else exists except that.
That's the one
How
thing.
dare I think of something that was like previously done?
Right. Harley Quinn just rebooted. Suicide Squad #1 started over, making Peacemaker the field leader. So prepping for the movie to get people like, hey, do you want to learn who Peacemaker is? You can learn.
And the show too. He's going to have his own. It's an HBO Max.
Yeah, James Gunn's doing it too.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least he wrote it or something. I don't know if he's.
I think he's the producer.
Okay.
There's a Swamp Thing 10-issue series about starring the new version of Swamp Thing as a young man from India. Crime Syndicate 6-issue miniseries bringing the Evil Justice League from Earth 3. Teen Titans Academy, which has the original new Teen Titans coming back to teach a bunch of younger kids. So DC's a lot, if you're interested in any of that stuff, March is a good jumping on point as March comes to an end, but a whole bunch of new stuff started there from DC.
Now that Teen Titans is supposed to be a hot ticket item because they're introducing, what is it, Red X from the cartoon?
Yeah, Red X. They haven't revealed who's under the mask yet, so people are trying to figure out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
You got through all your pages?
Wow.
No, I'm just I'm pausing. If anyone else wants to?
Well, I did see something.
I have no DC interest enough to comment.
Well, I was reading, unfortunately, an article through Bleeding Cool about a new Superman book that was going to be Superman and the Authority. He was going to be the team leader, which I'm very upset about.
You're upset?
So upset
that it didn't happen?
No, it's a book that they're working on right now. There is no reason why Superman should have anything to do with the Authority in the first place. But
I was wondering.
What do I know?
I was wondering where you were getting at.
Wouldn't you hate a version of Superman that's all dark and angry?
It'd be epic.
It would be Snyderific, but that's another podcast.
Stay tuned, True Believer. We'll talk the Snyder Cut later. So what are you selling? Are you making $1 million selling these digital files? Have you jumped on that bandwagon yet?
Oh, the non-fungible tokens.
The NFTs, you mean?
Yes, you're right.
Do you actually know what this stuff? Do you know what this stuff is?
Yes, I have researched the hell out of it.
Well, I know it's pretty stupid, but
as soon as I saw dollar signs, I was like, I'm all over this.
Now, Seth, I mentioned something to you when the first thing came. The guy made $1 million or whatever, basically selling a JPEG. And I remember I said, "How is this not a Michael K. Easton scheme? Like, this sounds exactly like something he would have heard about on the dark web."
Yeah.
And be like, you know what we should do, and have a great idea.
Yeah.
and somehow it not work out, and everyone else makes $1 million, and he
Right.
Yeah.
and he gets.
Well, that's about
Exactly.
to happen. It really is.
So
So
what made it make news is that Christie's auction house just had a huge sale of its first purely digital artwork.
Mm-hmm.
So you may have seen news about this. It was a collage.
Well,
of
wait a
5
minute. You know that Michael's head's turning, and he's going to have Christie's auction house in Vienna.
You've got room in the new house, I think. Put a shingle out.
Christy, put on your sexy voice. We got stuff to sell.
My auctions are so pro.
The greatest callback of all time.
Oh, damn. You have to be on this show to get that one.
All right, so this auction, it made news sites, a lot of them I saw, but it was a digital collage of 5,000 images, and it was just digital. It was a computer file, and it sold for $69 million.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now, from what I understand, that image he had comprised of one image every day for like 7 years or something to make this mosaic digital painting.
But that's
Copy,
crazy.
paste.
So it has something to do with blockchain.
Yes.
And NFT. There's a way to prove you have the original.
Big whoop.
Yes.
You can make infinite numbers of copies, but the person who has the original is paying millions of dollars for that privilege.
What if the original is in my brain when it did it wasn't even recorded to tape or whatever? It's just I saw it when it was created, when it happened.
Whenever you want me to riff, let me know.
Oh, riff it up. Riff it.
Did you have anything more about it, Jordan?
I have the extent of what I know. Okay.
Well, here's the problem from an artist standpoint is with you being a digital artist, there is no way to sell your original. Just like a lot of comic book artists that have transitioned from working on, physical paper over just like how I work on my iPad exclusive on my comic book pages. There's no way to sell that original. What this does is this creates a token that it's almost like a very long encrypted code that is associated with that piece of art, that there is no way to change it. There's no way to break it. Like once you purchase that, you're assigning this image with that token. So therefore it's just like buying a physical piece of art. So
no, it's not.
Well,
I mean, I understand the mentality of it, but it's all bullshit. It's bullshit.
It's a new digital frontier.
And I get it too, but not at that price. If it's a way, because that's artists have always supplemented their income selling originals.
Right.
Yeah.
And that does suck. You can't do it anymore. But an original piece of art's not going for these millions of dollars. So why? It's just the novelty of it, I'm sure.
But I mean, that's the same thing. Is because you're converting when you're going to purchase these NFTs, you're converting US dollars over to Ethereum, which is like the cryptocurrency. And
mascara.
Well, the steps you have to go, like you have to have a digital wallet. I mean, it's slightly complicated on how you're going through these steps.
It's trading fake money for fake art.
Yes, but it's the same thing with the Ethereum is like the trading rate, just like how the rate of the dollar.
I play guitar in Second Life.
I knew this wasn't going to go well.
No, go on.
But I was super excited about it. But I mean, it's the same thing of
they're paying. We predicted this.
Yes, but just like how the dollar rate, goes up and down over the global currency, is they're paying this much for, say, this digital painting for $69 million.
Nice.
That's at the current trading rate equals to whatever the Ethereum amount is.
What's the ratio between Shroot Bucks and Stanley Nickels?
River dollars?
On a turn,
I
guess.
As an example, think of Bitcoin.
Go on.
I so want to be serious at this moment. But think about Bitcoin when it first started developing and trading, of how cheap it was, and then how expensive it is now. Like, I mean, anyone that was originally investing in Bitcoin, I mean, they're millionaires now because of the exchange rate.
Right.
So
we have professional athletes requesting to be paid in Bitcoin now.
So that's the logic.
They could buy a JPEG. They've got enough money to buy a JPEG.
But I mean, that's the logic behind it, is because they're spending this on it. It's almost like it's being a placeholder for the money that they spent on it, so that later on they can convert it to US dollars at a higher rate.
That's really no different than actual art. Like, what makes a painting in a gallery worth millions of dollars? Just that people want it. It's a status symbol. You know, it's all the supply and demand of it's just made up in the air. But the reason that's
tangible, it's tangible.
True.
That's the thing. It's like, I mean, I don't think it's just I like physical media compared to digital, or, you know, this is like art, and it is intangible art. Like, it's like.
But if you go for your logic, Seth, with not necessarily you, but you play video games, people spend money on skins to enhance their character. I mean, there's a million different ways they can make these microtransactions to advance their character. There's people that have, like in World of Warcraft, like you've seen stories of where they've like spent millions, or well, not millions, but a large amount of money for a character that's 99th level. It's just along the same concept. It's just that we're moving into a digital era.
Video games as a whole are being sold as digital copies way more than they're being sold the physical copies anymore, where you go into the store and you pick it up.
But you're doing something, you're online, you're digitally doing something. You're using it. I'm getting a code, and it's no different. It doesn't feel any different than what anyone else would look at that piece of art.
And what, do you just keep it on your phone? You don't.
Yeah, look what I bought, and somebody with their phone goes, "Me too, I have that too." It's exactly that.
But I mean, think of people that have these original pieces of art that other people have copies hanging in their room as print.
Hey, they got digital frames.
It's really
now.
The same thing.
I just put it on my TV now.
Anyway, what I was getting to is what made me think of where I would go with it, is this would open an opportunity for me to sell my original pages of like what I'm working on right now on Insecticid for Pro Comics. Like, I could upload that file that has the original artwork and attach this token to it, making it original. No one else could own that, and be able to sell it. And you can do it. You can set a certain price, or you can do it auction style. Like right now, one Ethereum equals $1,600 and some dollars.
It's all I can hear now. You had to say Eternia. Every time he says it, that's what I think of now.
I'm almost 100% positive I'm saying that correctly.
I believe you.
I get it. It's just something I can't comprehend, because it's something I would never do. I would never purchase that.
Right.
And I get how it can be. It's going to be in 5 or 10 years, it will seem so normal. I get that, but it's not something I would ever. What possible use would I have that? Yeah. Like you're saying, it can be used as a placeholder for money. You're just investing in something that you like. But it's still just digitally there. It's not a tangible thing to me that I can hang on my wall and as an original piece of something,
And that's like another thing that's becoming very popular with it is like doing trading card sets. Like just doing there's 24 original of series 1 and you get the very first one.
Oh,
that's like baseball cards and stuff would they would run a sheet of them, and this is the first sheet, the uncut sheet of cards, and they were
I remember those. Yes, I do.
But so the way this ties into the comics we were talking about is because DC managed to stick their foot in their mouth again. Go figure. So these are becoming like collectibles for fans, and Marvel started a thing that I'd never heard about until I looked into it. They've already started launching, Spider-Man themed NFTs, and getting Adam Kubert to do art specifically for this, and they sold for like $25,000 a couple months ago. The officially licensed. So then tons of fan artists are coming out and doing it, and what really made headlines, 87-year-old Jose Delbo was an artist on Wonder Woman between 1976 and 1981. So this Bronze Age artist, I'm sure is retired now, auctioned off 900 different Wonder Woman NFTs and made $1.85 million just selling animated GIFs and JPEGs of Wonder Woman that he did. The most expensive single one was $136,000. So DC, I'm sure, hears about this, and they put out statements saying, we're examining the complexities of the NFT marketplace, and we'll work on a reasonable and fair solution. So basically saying, don't use our characters unless we, which is a fair thing to do. But this takes that age-old Artist Alley argument. Who can you profit off these famous characters someone else owns by selling copies of them? And when it gets into the millions of dollars, apparently you can't. So artists were not happy with DC telling people they can't use their characters. And it just sort of let off a firestorm of artists tweeting angrily.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing is, like, you're talking about crazy amounts of money. Like, I mean, just like, Jordan and I working on a comic book for umpteen hours that's going to sell for $4.99, and you have this one single image that you can sell for $1,000, which makes more sense.
So yeah, it's something I don't really understand, and I can't really wrap my head around. But it's like you said, a few years from now, it's going to be much more out there and much more commonplace.
Trust me, I just figured it out today.
Ethereum, that was the planet She-Ra was on, right? Not Eternia. He-Man was on the Eternia. Ethereum was She-Ra.
Okay. So let's sell some She-Ra JPEGs. And go to soprocomics.com to check out all our work. Hey, there was a cool auction I heard about a little while back from an unpublished Alan Moore Gen 13 script from 1997. So he was in the middle of working on this script and faxed pages in to Scott Dunbar, who was the editor-in-chief of Wildstorm at the time. And it's the only existing copy, these faxed pages he printed out. And he found them in some of his paperwork and got Alan's permission, and they auctioned them off to help pay the medical bills. Bob Wyacek, who was a longtime inker for Marvel, did a lot of Star Wars and X-Men books, so he was in the hospital and had medical bills. So there was a GoFundMe. So they sold this unearthed script, and the person who won it was Brian K. Vaughan. He bid $3,433. So then he put out a statement and said, guess which aging fanboy used some of his ill-gotten Hollywood blood money to acquire this important piece of comics history. So he donated to the charity, and then he scanned them all in, and if you donated to the GoFundMe, you could get access to it. So he'd send you this JPEG, and you get the first one, it's worth $1 million. No, but so a donation of any amount, he sent you the thing and you could read it. So
I hope those hospitals take Ethereum.
right in your veins. It'll just go in with all the other imaginary stuff.
Where do you get the next one?
So it was a parody of what was hot at the time, like the X-Men and what was going on in the current industry. It was called The Coming of the Collector. So it was Alan Moore kind of bashing on fanboys a little bit. So I'm not.
There he goes.
Goodbye.
He just left. He sat down and left.
To Ethereum! He's been teamed up.
He just sold. His digital code just sold. Done. We can't look at him anymore without paying.
Free Ethereum from the evil forces of Horda.
So Marvel's, speaking of 1996, Marvel's next big event, Heroes Reborn.
Jesus.
Who remembers that fun stuff?
I do.
It is the 25th anniversary of Heroes Reborn.
You know, I never read that. I've never read any of that.
So
I have a few issues of a couple of the different series from that year, but right when I got back into comics, what basically those were the couple years I left, 95 when all the ass fell out, and then that happened, but Heroes Return is where I came in.
So this was the big, because the industry was floundering. So Marvel got Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, and some of the people who left for Image to come back, and they took over Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Fantastic Four, anything that wasn't X-Men basically, and let them do whatever they wanted with them to try to, modern them up like the other hot 90s books. So that was 25 years ago, but we're coming back to it now, seemingly in name only. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with the original, but Jason Aaron, the writer, and Ed McGuinness, the artist, are doing this mini-series. The tagline was, "Whatever happened to Earth's mightiest heroes?" So the idea is Blade, vampire hunter, wakes up in a world where no one's ever heard of the Avengers. So Blade is the only one who remembers the previous time. So the idea is, what would happen to the Marvel Universe if there were no Avengers? Tony never got injured. Captain America's still in the ice. Thor never lifted the hammer. So other people fill in to take their place. It has a lot to do with the Squadron Supreme.
I have that on me.
Yeah, there's a more brutal version who, take care of criminals.
Well, there was a Squadron Sinister, right?
We'll have to follow up to all that stuff. But yeah. So a little more, we call it Elseworld sort of deal. Right. But they're also promoting it. Comic stores are getting a free 10-pack of trading cards to give away. So I'm going to do, anybody who buys the first issue you get a pack of trading cards, because those are getting hot too. If you can buy fake art, those Marvel trading cards. If you have some of those original ones,
you gave me that Game Trade magazine. It came with a pack of cards, and I threw it over to Nick. A few minutes later, he's like, "Well, the rarest card in there was only worth 9 cents." I was like, well, I didn't know you were going to try to make money off of it.
Cards have become
non-fungible.
The cards have really made a comeback. I've been seeing them kind of everywhere. Those old, like non-sports cards, those old Marvel cards and Star Wars.
Marvel Masterworks was a thing in the early 90s. I remember collecting that series that were really great looking cards. I forget who, different artists, but
those have gone up in price too.
Yeah, I remember collecting all those. It was all about the chase, though. Once I had them all, I just sold them to Alonzo.
Yeah, but for the last 20 years, they weren't worth the space they're taking up in your closet. But all of a sudden, it's got some, especially like whatever the first series was, like the Fleer or whatever it was, because that's the first appearance of so and so on a card, and that the speculator market and the collector market is crazy for that stuff right now. So
that's cool.
Who knows?
Well, that's like the
stuff. Be worth stuff.
The X-Force One. Fortunately, I was listening to another podcast the other day, but Mr. Rob Liefeld was talking about the Deadpool card that was in X-Force One, that if he sold 5 million copies, that there would be 1 million of those that would be Deadpool, and that would be his first appearance of the cards that was with the Marvel Masterworks. So those are going for ridiculous prices right now, that if you can find one and get it graded, that, I mean, you're talking like $1,000 a card.
Did you ever collect any of those cards, Michael? Back in
Oh
the
yeah,
day?
I was.
Did you?
Yeah, I was really like Seth said, the first couple series of, like, I was like going down to People's News buying a bunch of them.
I lived with 3 other guys out in Waverly, and one of the guys was not a comic book guy or he didn't collect anything, but he's collected those just because I was collecting them, and he wanted to find the things I needed and sell them to me overpriced. He did. He found one of the foil cards or whatever I needed, and he was so proud of himself.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, even I remember the movie cards. I remember the Batman '89 cards of the Star Wars
cards.
Yeah, I had tons of those.
Back
yeah.
in the day, yeah. Aren't those the ones with like the C-3PO penis or something?
Yeah, the original ones. Yeah, the top. It was a Topps card that did that, but they had different waves of each movie. They had Star Wars, they had Empire, they had Return of the Jedi. I remember more the Return of the Jedi sets. I remember the wax packs with Luke's Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker on it with a yellow background, red lettering. Like, I get it.
You could spend some of that stimulus tracking those down next.
I know, I should.
Heck yeah.
So
yeah, deck it out down there.
Just when everybody's buying cards, I'm back into figures.
You're playing the markets. When figures go down, that's when you got to scoop
You
up.
did it right. You got it right.
So yeah, that'll be May. Heroes Reborn. There'll be a whole bunch of. There's one main series, and there's gonna be a whole bunch of one shots and tie-ins.
You almost had me when you're like, there's this, and you get a card. I was like, maybe. Now you're like, there's a whole bunch of them. When you find out what the titles are, I'm kind of curious what the other ones are. Like, is just everybody, everything?
Yeah, there's like a Magneto one with a cup where Magneto's leading the X-Men. There's a Champions sort of book with some of the young heroes. So it's kind of again. It's like it's a what if story. It's mixing everything up. Age of Apocalypse sort of story where if one little change in the past changes everything in the future.
There's one with Gwen, but she's like Gwen Hawk or something.
Yeah, right.
Nighthawk is supposed to be the Batman type character. Like on the cover, it has I think it's like a hawk eating a bat that say that we're better than Batman.
So yeah, if you don't know, the Squadron Supreme are kind of the analogs of the Justice League. Hyperion is a Superman version. Nighthawk is Batman. So it's basically Marvel's Justice League. So they'll be kind of at the forefront of this event.
That's interesting. We'll see.
All right, so just some of the current hot books right now. Alien just relaunched at Marvel. So Disney now has all the Fox properties.
Mm-hmm.
So Marvel's putting out an Alien monthly, and the Predator monthly will start next month, I believe. Berserker, the Keanu Reeves co-written book, spelled BRZRKR. It's so
That's
berserk.
so
there's no time for vowels even. We just
rad.
It's so cool. It's already been picked up, I think, by Netflix as a movie and an anime series.
I'm sure, but it was Boom Studios. It's a 12-issue series. It's basically they just drew Keanu Reeves as the main character because we know he's going to eventually play him.
Just like Cyberpunk.
Right.
Now, did that start out as a Kickstarter? Like
Berserker?
The first issue?
It may have. I'm sure there are a million different variant covers.
I've already seen some out there where people, are buying them up and going crazy over it, and I was just like, okay.
Yeah, Keanu's having a moment because Berserker came out, and then like a week later, there was a trade of the most recent Bill and Ted comic, and then I got a Cyberpunk 2077 comic. So like, my shelves are full of Keanu Reeves books.
And that's strange. Like, you're allowed to have, like, most actors have a second coming where they fade away and they come back, but this is like his third round.
So he's an immortal soldier. So the first issue is basically just all action. He's the guy you send in who can get his limbs blown off and get riddled with bullets, and he won't die. So it's very bloody war story, and it's basically, you kind of flash back to when he first realized he could do this, and he wants out of this life of being a living weapon, basically.
So this is what if Keanu Reeves was Wolverine?
Pretty much. A lot of people think he's immortal anyway because he doesn't seem to age. So let's just go in that direction. Marvel launched their Star Wars High Republic tie-ins. So this is their big push, all the bunch of new novels and different things set in this new era hundreds of years ago that we haven't explored before in any of the expanded universe.
Basically, Yoda is the only person we've heard of us back then, because he's like 700 years old in the timeline they're doing now.
Yeah, so he's not baby Yoda, but he's not old. He's not old grizzled Yoda either. He's somewhere in the middle Yoda.
Right. He's middle Yoda. We're workshopping that. We'll come back.
Middle-aged Yoda. For Marvel, Daredevil 25 was a hot issue. Elektra took over as Daredevil. So Matt accidentally killed a guy several issues ago.
Got Marvin in the face.
Yeah, he pretty much did. Like, he didn't pull his punch and accidentally killed the guy. And being the good Catholic that he is, being the law-abiding citizen that he is, he went on to trial and pled his case and went to jail for it. So Elektra took over in a kind of a modified Daredevil suit.
Is this the Zdarsky run, or what is this?
Yes. It's been pretty good, but yeah, the Elektra thing was a surprise. So the day it came out, it was a really hot item and everyone was looking for it. But the story's been good enough to back it up.
I like I've just seen cover images, but the costume that, I don't know if that's what she is in the book, but it looked pretty decent.
Yeah, it's a neat look. And one of the weirdest, but this came out a while ago. I've been wanting to talk about this. Solid Blood number 17. Does anyone remember this?
Solid Blood. Oh.
You mean blood?
No, I don't know what this is. What are you talking about?
This is an Image comic from Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley, the team behind Invincible. And it was just it wasn't in the catalog. It wasn't solicited. It wasn't advertised. It just showed up at comic stores. And
That's so Kirkman.
Yeah, it's very Kirkman, but he went a little further on it. So he, like a week before it came out, he made a YouTube video where he's like, guys, the weirdest thing just happened. Image contacted me, the warehouse, and so they found this pallet of books, and I don't remember making them. So the idea was we had a Bernstein Bears effect.
Oh, yeah.
And this book that doesn't exist in our dimension showed up. So at some alternate dimension, Robert Kirkman has been writing Solid Blood for Image. And the idea...
Sounds like the Sentria from Marvel.
A little bit. A little kind of a new age version of that.
Yeah.
So when you get it, you look in the letters column, and the idea was basically this is the what if Walking Dead hadn't blown up. Because he said in the letters column, he's talking about, that book had potential. Sad to see it go. Like, it made it to issue 12 or whatever, and then it was canceled. So he's very excited about this new book, Solid Blood. It's going to be his first series to ever make it to issue 25. And he's really happy for the fan support and all this stuff. So, again, it was just a fun gimmick. It was a surprise. The way he released that Negan book to comic shops, it was free. It was just a kind of a promotion to help comic shops make a little extra money during this weird year. But there was even a thing in the letters column. He called it, somebody wrote in asking something weird, and he said, that sounds a lot like the Castro effect, where we all have memories of Fidel Castro being prime minister into the 2000s, even though we all know he was assassinated in 1981. So that's his dimension's version of the Mandela effect. So
sounds like he needs to talk to Ron P. Tramp.
Pretty well.
Yeah.
Just a fun little release. The comic books could use more fun like that, I think.
And now, how many issues of that have come out?
Just one. They won't. I don't think there's any plans for any more. So.
Oh, I thought he was predicting 25 issues there, but
you got to go to the other dimension first. But there were ads for Ryan Otley's book, a book that doesn't exist, from him on the back cover, and
right, of course,
some house ads.
Thing,
yeah, it was a whole production.
Everybody loves the alternate universe.
Yeah.
I have questions like that's similar to this, since it's Image with the crossover book that's being published right now. Like I think it was issue 4. It had all these ads for other books, but I couldn't tell, like, they were related to the story. So are those actual books coming out, or is it just fake ads?
No, I think a lot. Those are all the other books Donny Cates writes, and that seems to be what crossover is, of like the Donny Cates All-Star Jam, where like all his past books characters are showing up, which doesn't interest me very much. But maybe that's not what it is still. But to begin with, that's all it has been.
I mean, just to mind, like, there was the guy that was kind of He-Man, Conan type character with the big sword. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Yeah, that series started out good, first couple issues, and then I've still read them, but just waiting for something.
I still can't figure out if I like the book or not.
Yeah, I didn't like the last issue that well.
I think like issue 6, I think, is the end of the first story arc, so I'm giving it till 6.
Yeah, okay. Keep me till then. We'll see what happens.
I think the biggest problem with it was that the hype was too big for this book. So you're expecting all these like shocks and surprises, and it's not living up to that hype. Especially if it is just Donny Cates' ego. I'm like, my fans will love this. All my other old characters. Like, I've never read any of those books.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it was a shock that it had Mike Allred's Madman character in there. But I mean, when's the last time you've seen that character?
Never.
And we had all 4 issues of the Kaiju Score released from Aftershock.
I bought them.
From our pal James Patrick, area writer extraordinaire.
Not nearly as controversial as the Hero Hourly trade that claims there was a 3rd issue that I looked for years and never came out.
Only had the first 2 issues ever came out, and then released a trade of all 3 issues. So again, that's from another dimension. It just showed up in the warehouse.
That's what I'm chalking it up to.
We don't know where that 3rd issue. We don't know what dimension that 3rd issue is.
It came, according to my CLZ Comics app, it came out in 2016 in some alternate dimension, and I don't know what's happening. But I finally got to read it, and it was good.
I think the 3rd issue was all digital, and there was only one copy that you had to you had to buy through on
one
you
guy
had to go
Eternia.
you had to go through the wormhole and stop at Dimension X.
She-Ra was there, and
that at least there's a little worth to that NFT. If you actually have the only digital version of it, nobody else can even read it. Now we're talking.
Okay, you're giving me an idea. I like what you're saying.
Wu-Tang Clan did that once. They released an album and only sold 1 copy.
Wow.
Hey, from what I understand, that James might have a little beef with Mr. Zack Snyder over the new movie that's coming out through Netflix, where there's a robbery during the Dead Uprising.
Oh.
It's basically the similar plot. Store. Yeah. Very similar.
So yeah, the plot of this is it's a crime story, the perfect heist, and we're going to do it as a giant Godzilla-type monster makes landfall while everyone else is distracted. We're going to steal this crazy thing, and of course everything goes wrong, and it's in production from Sony Pictures. They're having meetings and making deals.
So it was a quality deal. I enjoyed it. It's good stuff. I'm a fan. Oh,
That's a lot of stuff we just did.
We're
Comic
not done.
Man.
We're not done. I want to talk about something, and it's perfect for this 2 hours into an episode.
I've been watching the clock. I skipped some stuff, so
no, this isn't important. I'm not. It didn't hurt my feelings. This is where I want.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Yeah, go for it. Why not?
I am super excited about this, so I just want to point it out so it can go on record before even the first issue comes out. I have all the art done for Infected Kid #1, and I almost have all the art done for Infected Kid #2. So I just want to put that on record before it hits the fan.
Don't sell the originals till you get them printed.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna have to sell them digitally because you don't have the printer anymore.
I have my way.
Christie's online auction house. It's with K.
Yeah. Exactly.
That would be a pretty baller movie. Like, I had some art at Christie's auction.
Mm-hmm.
No big deal.
They colored them for me too.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Okay, I want to talk about something real quick. It's so basic. Like, you guys are gonna be like, yeah, we all know this stuff already. But I'm coming as a new perspective on some old comics. I started buying some omnis, and much like the G.I. Joe Transformers debate, there's kind of an X-Men Avengers thing. It's like I grew up on the Avengers, but I've read some X-Men, but I never actually just had an opportunity to read the whole series. I've read a trade here or there, but back in the day you couldn't just buy a trade. And now it's like there's these omnis are such a great opportunity to read these stories in perfect condition, not faded old back issues or what are those essential collections in black and white and all that junk. And it's
for us artist people,
right? Coloring books. I mean, and so anyway, I decided I'm gonna read as much X-Men as I can stomach. And just start basically at the beginning and see what the.
Are you talking like
is.
the Jack Kirby?
No, I'm skipping that because it's hard to get those omnis right now.
So are you going to the Neil Adams era?
I'm starting with Giant Size, 1975. Okay. So this basically when Claremont starts.
I've read a bunch. I read the Spider-Man omnibus, the original stuff, the Fantastic Four. I'm like, this stuff is so great. I want to read all this old stuff. And then Daredevil, Hulk, some of the books are not that good.
Well,
they don't match the thing. Right. So yeah, I think the X-Men were at the bottom of the pile even back then.
Yeah.
So they definitely haven't aged well. So yeah, that's a fine jumping on point for that.
Yeah, because Golden Age is almost unreadable. I have a Golden Age Cap Omni, the first 10 issues of the 40s stuff. This is crazy old, and it's almost it's some of it's better than you think it's going to be, but it's not that entertaining, and even Silver Age is not. It's kind of rough to read. We're Bronze Age people. We grew up on Bronze and Modern, and even the beginning of it, is a little dry. But I was like, I'm just going to start with Giant Size. I can buy it, So I got it and started reading, and I thought I would just kind of recap the first, few issues here, what happened in that era, and maybe I might go along occasionally at the end of an episode, tell you some more stuff I read, but. I was surprised by how much I did like it, and I mean it's the X-Men. It's good. I've liked over the years what I had already read, and I know where the story goes here and there, But just the X-Men, was such a new concept. Stan just got sick of creating origin stories basically, and said, "Oh, they're just born like this," and then it fit right in with the, the times of civil rights that were going on, and so okay, well, they can also be the oppressed and the unliked, the heroes for the people that still hate them anyway, and had Professor X is basically the Martin Luther King, and Magneto's the Malcolm X, and all that storyline going on. Well, when you start with Giant Size X-Men and they bring in all these new characters, this is the new team, and the whole story is basically that the old team's lost on this island. Cyclops shows up and he's like, we went there and I got all my power sucked out of me, and they sent me back, and so Professor X had got a whole new team of Wolverine and Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, and the art is so good. Go on.
Now, do you know why they started the giant, like the new X-Men, like the reasoning behind that?
Well, I know that no one was buying it. They did like 60 some issues in the 60s and 66 issues, I think, and then it was stuff failing horribly. So for the next 30 issues were just reprints. And then they got an idea to just come out with new characters that were more diverse. And
well, I was listening. It's funny because this was not too long ago. I was listening and they were talking about how successful their reprints were doing overseas in other countries, and so that's what made them think of doing more global type characters, and what led to the new X-Men. And they were talking about how originally Colossus was supposed to be the superstar, and it obviously, unfortunately, like navigated more to Wolverine, where Dave Cockrum, his favorite was Nightcrawler.
Yeah, it's funny. I would never have guessed that they were trying to make Colossus the star, because he's kind of the least covered character in these early issues. But yeah, we're all over the world, trying to be diverse and have that worldwide representation, like you're saying, if they were selling all these issues overseas and stuff. Nightcrawler Germany, Colossus Russian, Wolverine Canadian, Storm Kenya, my dad would say, and Obama, and then Sunfire,
Nigeria.
Sunfire from Japan, and Banshee was returning from Ireland, and Thunderbird was the Native American Apache superhuman.
So are you saying this is like some sort of political forced diversity the company was shoving down our throats?
Right.
Okay.
That a large company figured out they could make money off of?
It was just so, I'm sure it was a shocking thing at the time to have all this diversity, and people really embraced it.
And it did it the right way. That's the wrong way to say it, but it did it naturally, where it just, he said, well, we want Colossus to be the star. They didn't just give him his own series and you love Colossus. They just introduced them all and let the fans decide. Right. Oh, you think Wolverine's the coolest? Okay, well then he starts getting more of the spotlight. So it was a very natural progression for all these characters to become the big stars they are.
Yeah.
You don't care about Banshee? Well, let's sideline him a little bit.
Exactly. Even though I do like Banshee, I didn't know much about him until reading this, and that he's so likable. And he's like the nicest guy on the team. But what was cool was in that first issue, they're going to save the X-Men. They go to Krakoa, and you find out, it's a long time known that the island ends up being a mutant, but it's absorbing their powers, and it sent Scott away to go collect these new X-Men and bring them there to bring even more power. And it was such a great metaphor for, at the time, the Vietnam War ending. And if you could think of a faraway land that was sucking the youth out of our country and just asking us to keep sending more, it was just a very awesomely told story. And they save them, of course, get out of there. And at the end of that giant size issue, they're like, okay, now we got 13 X-Men. What are we going to do with all these X-Men? But basically, a bunch of them leave, and you end up with the new ones. There's all that classic stuff. You get the Danger Room. You get Thunderbird dies. Go what?
I was just gonna say that was always my favorite of like watching the X-Men in the Danger Room. Like before they had like the Star Trek Holo that like just like all these machines popping up and firing at them, and I mean I always loved
it's such a
that was
cool
one of
concept.
my favorite parts.
I mean, yeah, whenever I would read a random X-Men issue back in the day, I was like, that is so cool. Why don't the Avengers have a Danger Room?
They got a butler.
Exactly. I mean, they had a
He's
gym.
dusting the doilies. Come on.
They have a gym, but they didn't have a Danger Room.
What other comic that they're trying to kill them in the training room?
Yeah. And then in one of those early issues there, that Thunderbird dies. He's like overzealous, trying to prove himself and cocky, and he dies like Bucky style on a Count Nefarious plane. And I mean, he's still dead. Like that character's dead, and it was a big thing. Like one of the next issue, I think, or after that, Cyclops is like walking around just dreading, stressed about it. And the captions, it was the coolest thing. Like the way Claremont wrote it, like the voice in the captions, you're expecting narration and you're kind of getting that, but it's like mocking him the whole time about like, what did you do? It was just like a very surprising way to write it. And I wish people would use captions more, interestingly than just captioning.
No, does the omnibus have the letters columns printed?
Yeah, that's one of the greatest things.
Because you'd be able to follow along what people are asking for and how shocked they were at stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, they hated Wolverine immediately, and then they, like you said, they fall in love with him very shortly after that. It's very interesting to hear their feedback and how they what they did about it. And it also, like, Claremont was so good at just nesting things in some of these early issues that pay off over time as you go. But I was just going to cover the one more real,
because he was on the book till 1991,
right? Yeah.
So 25 plus years of.
You can thank Jim Lee for that, for his exodus.
But I was just going to cover here, like the first big storyline you get is the Phoenix Saga and the beginning of that. Like they're out on the town. It's like Christmas, I think.
Are they shopping?
Yeah, they're shopping at Rockefeller Center, and it's Jean had come back because she had been dating Scott, still, but she wasn't on the team.
Is John Berger on this or Dave Cockrum?
It's still Cockrum, and he's great.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, he is. Very simple, like clean style.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was still him on that stuff. And the Sentinels attack, and they capture the, Jean and Wolverine and Banshee and go. Oddly, Professor X was fishing, and they also went and got him. But like Dr. Stephen Lang's the robot maker guy, and it's all just about killing mutants. But so they track the guy to this space station. I'm sure you guys have seen the story a million times, but I didn't know all the details or whatever. And so they have this friend, Dr. Corbeau, who takes them onto a Star Core Lab space shuttle, and they catch a ride with him, and they have to kind of crash land the space shuttle into the station. Yada yada, big fight. They save the others. Dr. Lang, the bad guy, crashes in the wall and dies. And so they need to return to Earth, and this is where, because they crash landed, the ship's damaged, the shuttle, and the only way to get back to Earth, the pilot now can't pilot it because he'll die from the radiation. And they were all going to get in this life pod inside it to be safe, but somebody's got to pilot it. And so Jean uses her telepathy and gets the information how to pilot, the shuttle from the pilot, and then she is going to do it herself. And Scott's losing it. I mean,
Yeah, all I can hear is that '90s cartoon voice of Scott. Gene. In like every episode, he yelled Gene.
Yeah, I can't wait to get through all this stuff and then go watch that cartoon because I didn't even watch it that much back in the day. But the first I want to say one thing about the X-Men is I am so about the relationships in any kind of story like this. Like whenever the Avengers, when I first started reading the Avengers, it was at a time when they did a lot of that stuff. It was like, oh, the Janet, she's dating Tony, but she doesn't know he's Iron Man, and Hank's this and da da da. And the X-Men is all that, like all the time. So I eat that shit up. Like
and had a comparatively huge female audience as well.
Yeah,
who liked the relationship drama and the
right
soap opera. All comics are soap opera, but the X-Men was especially that.
Right, and I've heard a lot over the years. They always gave Claremont crap for that because he would be just as happy to write an issue of them just walking around talking about that kind of stuff, and I would love that. Like I'm looking forward to reading all that kind of stuff. But they, she's flying the ship back down and using her telepathy to like fight off the radiation and all this, and everyone's worried about her. They kind of say little goodbyes just in case, and then it fast forwards like the next issue is 101. She bursts out of the water after they land, and you're like, that's the story you got at that time. So I want to stop there for a second and show you my favorite omnibus I have is X-Men Classic. I did not understand what this was back in the day, and I bought this. It is the director's cut. It is everything you want. And I want to compare it to this Marvel stuff that we've just been watching. Like, you watch all these movies, and then now we got something like WandaVision, where Feige and these people can go back and, they're creating these movies and they're finding the voices of these characters and telling their stories. But then they take that TV series and go back and make something like Age of Ultron great. Make something like, fixing things to fill in gaps and holes and make things make more sense. Now that, change things about the characters that didn't make sense right at the beginning. And that's what Claremont did with this X-Men Classic series, that it reprinted issues because, one, like I said before, you couldn't get trades really to read them, and people wanted to read those old issues they couldn't find in the bin.
I remember when those were on the newsstand. Like, I would buy those issues because they would have like an updated cover, but it would have a reprint in it.
Yeah, Arthur Adams did the covers, and I bought this, and I read an issue of this, and then because those issues aren't in this in the X-Men Classic, it's just the panels that were changed. It shows you the before and after, and and then it has the backup story, and it's great. I can read the issue, go over here, see what they fixed. Like, they might fix where Storm quit using contractions. They went back and fixed. She has to talk more regally. I did not. Just those kind of things that they put more relationship stuff in. They showed Jean living with Misty Knight and Aurora coming and going shopping with her, and just a lot of relationships. Gave some context to why Thunderbird was acting the way he was acting before he died. They had his funeral and these backup stories that, they had like the date that Jean went on with Scott, where she's puts on the dress that she's wearing in the Phoenix Saga. It's just all these great touches. It's just a director's cut. And if you were ever going to reread this stuff, you have to read that stuff, because he's like went back and where the later issues of his run, he's found their voice. He's doing this stuff already, but now he gets to go back and fix his early run and make it feel less Silver Age and more Bronze Age.
Those backup stories in the classics are like those are fan favorites. Critically acclaimed, recognized as like, wow, this was ahead of its time, and
blew me away. A lot of it, like there's a scene where they go to Wolverine and Nightcrawler go to a bar in this town of people and whatever, and he's got Nightcrawler's got a thing, an image changer, so he doesn't look like himself, and they kind of have like a little bet or whatever, and Wolverine bets him something, and if he wins, he has to go out looking like himself and accepting himself or whatever. So, Nightcrawler loses and then goes out looking like himself. The town kind of reacts to him or whatever, and he's explaining to somebody, how talking to somebody about Star Wars. He says, I have a friend like I have a relationship kind of like Han and Chewie, and sometimes I let the Wookiee win too, but it's just like they are great stories. But
yeah, like that right there, that's something I miss, is the Wolverine Nightcrawler connection that you don't see. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw it in comics. Like they had like the good buddy team up where they're always like kind of ribbing each other, having a good time.
They all individually, those all of them have a different relationship with each other character that really stand out in this book. But anyway, the point, the build up to that was there is a part that fills in the blanks between, of her flying the ship back, and it's so good. You see what, she's doing good for a while, but then like the radiation is overpowering her. She's losing her hair. Her body's desiccated from radiation. She's hemorrhaging. Her cellular bonds are dissolving. It talks about like if she wasn't weightless, her heart would burst, her bones would crumble to powder. And she doesn't care. She's just trying to save her friends, but she like knows she's not going to make it and they're going to die. And she yells out for help, and that's when the Phoenix answers and says, bond your humanity to me and I'll save you. And she's like, I danced with the devil himself, and she's like, you may yet. And it just sets up the future of that, where in the original you just get her to burst out of the water and you don't see any of that. It's just like, so it blew me away, and I'm loving this reread of the X-Men. So if I feel like I find some exciting stuff to tell you as I get further into it, I will. But I wanted to let people know how I was doing it and how much satisfaction I was getting out of it. That's it. Now we're probably 2 hours into this podcast.
Yeah. But hey, it's comic books. We all love comic books. We hope you do too. There's so much out there. Make time for the comics as well. The TV stuff is overwhelming. There's a new movie every week, but comics will never leave you.
If you think the books are good, well, if you think the books are good, wait till you read the comics.
That's a 2 hour end quote for the masses there.
As always, I'm the illustrious Michael K. Easton.
Thanks for listening. My name is Jordan Lowe.
Cliff Barnes.
Bye forever.
Ka-Pow, the pop cultured podcast, is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during the podcast are property of copyright holders. All original content is property of www.udamwithkpp.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a comment. Ka-Pow, the pop cultured podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found. You can connect with us through social media on Facebook, YouTube, at the Ka-Pow Podcast on Twitter, or email the show, Ka-Pow, the pop cultured podcast, at gmail.com. If you really want to go the extra mile, please sign up to be a patron through the Podbean app or our website, www.udamwithkpp.com, to receive special content and early access to some episodes. We are grateful to anyone that chooses to contribute, but please know that most of our content will always remain free, so please continue to like, comment, and share.